I just follow what's right at the moment. You're just hurting yourself when you're like, I'm a this, I'm a that. You know,
In today's day and age, there's been a huge abundance of music artists than ever before, and a lot of them have been gaining the success and fame they strive for. While of course the quality of their music is subjective, a lot of artists have been able to become successful by setting themselves apart from others. However, some artists attempt to manifest this by also going in a completely different direction from what is expected by them. Sometimes this outcome is positive, other times not so much, but these quote-unquote left turns were able to push these artists out of the comfort zone. And I think it would be interesting to talk about these left turns. However, I feel we should answer an important question first. What classifies as a left turn? The answer definitely seems quite obvious at first. The textbook definition of a figurative left turn is an unexpected change from the way things seem to be going. In this case, it referred to unexpected changes in music artists. But what exactly are these changes? There are many ways artists have changed, but in general, these left turns result in one of two changes. Changes in sound and changes in quality. This will probably be the longest section of the video by a great margin, as this is often what people usually think of when they think of left turns in music artists, because there are so many instances where artists end up completely changing the type of music they make. A great example of this is Radiohead, with the 2000s album Kid A. Radiohead could have made something like OK Computer again and shelved the success of that, but the band felt like they needed to switch up their sound because their current sound drained them. That's why you see them on Kid A playing around with electronic drum kits, synthesizers, and overall electronic instrumentation. There's barely any rock elements throughout the entire record aside from a couple tracks, yet they were able to push the band forward because of this, and it ended up resulting in their best album. At least out of the 5 Radiohead albums I listened to. I haven't finished the whole discography yet. Tyler, the Creator, also had a notable switch up, going from Cherry Bomb, probably his most aggressive and abrasive album to date, to Flower Boy, which is not only way more personal, but also ditches the harsh sounds and instead replaces it with gorgeous production across the album. I haven't seen many people mention it, but you can kind of hear the sound in Cherry Bomb too, specifically songs like the last song of the album. A lot of people also say there was a change in quality too, but honestly, I enjoyed both albums enough for me to say that it wasn't that much of a drastic change in quality. I obviously prefer Flower Boy more, but I know people that prefer Cherry Bomb, and I honestly see that as completely valid. Alright, let's just go through a couple more notable artists. Denzel Curry has always changed his style with every album, but I say the biggest change is when he went from Melt My Eyes to Your Future, his most conscious and reflective album with almost meditative production, to literal Memphis rap with his newest album. Denzel is one of the only few rappers where he can pull something like this off and literally no one would be surprised. Kanye is also like this too, except to even greater extents. You want another college rap sounding album? What about an album with pure auto-tune singing, minimal electronic production? You want another album as grand sounding as My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy? How about an album that sounds like literal electronic radioactive poisoning with a soul sample song in the end? This man is generally so unpredictable that I don't even think he can predict himself what he's gonna do next. Like, if I told a diehard Kanye fan from 4 years ago that he would go from making one of the most touching tracks he's ever made about his mother's passing with Andre 3000 to making music dedicated to Hitler, I think they would immediately kill themselves. Speaking of Andre, so many people have been asking him to make a solo rap album, yet he was doing literally everything except drop a rap album. Andre in 2023 dropped his first solo project, New Blue Sun, a fully lyricless spiritual flute jazz album that is completely different from anything else he's ever done. Yet he ended up getting nominated for a little Grammy over this album. It's clear he's enjoying what he's doing right now, so I don't mind him making music like this. Of course, you can't talk about left turns without mentioning Donald Glover, as he's basically done everything media related at this point. But there's one switch up specifically I want to mention. This man, up until 2016, throughout his whole music career, set himself to be a great West Coast rapper. And because the internet especially was Gambino at his best at the time, which infamously had a whole story and screenplay with the album. Up to this point, everyone saw him as mainly a rapper, a good one too at that. And then out of nowhere, no music videos, this guy in 2016 drops Awaken My Love, which is a full 180 of every single one of his other projects, making a full psychedelic soul and funk project. And the craziest part, this is some of the best material he's put out to this day. It has been 9 years since this album dropped, and Me and Your Mama is still his best song. I'm by no means the first person to say this, but this is such a huge switch up that it doesn't even sound like the same artist. Even with his latest project from 2024, Bannerstone in a New World, he's doing both rapping and singing, and the entire project is basically just a shuffle button in a nutshell. Left turns in sound obviously don't apply to just popular artists too. AJ Reserve, for example, practically invented an entire subgenre of rap, at least according to some people. But by the time I get to Phoenix, deforming and mauling hip-hop quality so much that it doesn't even sound like hip-hop at all. They certainly weren't known for making safe hip-hop tracks, as they were quite eccentric before, but this album saw them take a whole new route that we've never seen from them, which is fitting considering the context that this album was made in. It was a bold choice for sure, but it absolutely paid off because it resulted in their most well-known and well-praised project, and for good reason. Even after Injury Reserve got discontinued, the byproduct of that group, By Storm, continued with these songs, and they even released their debut album this year. And surprisingly enough, a lot of these tracks are even more broken and experimental, and it's very intriguing to see where Parker and Richie are heading with their music. Black Country New Road recently dropped their album last year with Forever How Long, and completely ditched their post-rock sound after the lead singer Isaac left the group. While I prefer the post-rock sound over their new pop-oriented sound obviously, the fact they were still able to make a great project after a core member left the group is amazing. Not to mention they didn't need to completely change their sound, but they did, and I respect them for it. It seems like their next album will be taking a more traditional rock approach as well, so if that's the case then they'll have 4 albums completely unique from each other, which I find pretty cool. Brain debuted in 2018 by making slowcore duster-like music with their self-titled EP. And it's generally so funny to listen to this EP now, because it only took them 2 projects to go from this to The Lamb as Effigy, an album that fully leans into harsh rock and post-rock with loud screeching guitars, chaotic and depraved drums, mentally unstable vocals, a little 24-minute drone song in the middle of the album, and another 24-minute song at the end that contains a 12-minute schizo rant. This album might be the only album ever made. Even after they broke up, some of the members formed a new band, Sherling, and they proceeded to drop a 62-minute long song that's somehow even more schizophrenic than The Lamb is Effigy. I'm learning the cover for a reason, by the way. There's one more artist I'd like to mention in this category, and that is Aphex Twin, or Richard D. James. One of the most influential and well-known electronic artists out there, he has pretty much experimented with multiple electronic sounds and soundscapes throughout his entire career. He's made incredible fast-paced IDM with projects like Come to Daddy and Songs on Drooks. He's made slower and atmospheric songs like on his first project, Selected Ambient Works, and he's even made incredibly well-polished ambient music and piano ballads like on Drooks and his second volume of Selected Ambient Works. He's even made music that is made to replicate an asthma attack with his Ventolin EP, with post-industrial drums over this incredibly agitating high-pitched frequency. He's been making music for almost 30 years now, and he's shown to be incredibly versatile and groundbreaking in everything he makes, and I find that quality to be super admirable in an artist. I could think of so many more artists who also switch up their sound during their careers, but this section will be way too long, so I think it's best to move on to the second main category, which is changes in quality are another common kind of left turn in artists. When artists take the previously established sound and elevate it to a higher quality than it was before. A good example of this is, once again, Tyler the Creator, but this time his transition from Goblin to Wolf. Goblin is often seen as his weakest album, with it being almost forcefully edgy and unapologetic, without being worried about polish or quality at all. While Wolf is still notably edgy, not only is it less forced, he lets other topics shine through, like love and mental health. Of course these topics were on Goblin too, but on Wolf is more nuanced, and Goblin focused more on stuff like cannibalism and other weird themes anyways. Not only that, the songs are more polished and just way more gorgeous to listen to, honestly. It's even more baffling when you realize Wolf is supposed to be the prequel to Bastard and Goblin. There have been a lot of artists recently that improved in quality actually. Yeats 2093 in particular is a standout. He was making decent music before this, sure, but 2093 was sort of his big break with his most well-themed and well-polished material to date. The sci-fi vibes are genuinely done so well on here, and I wish he would make stuff like this again, considering the reception of the next project he would drop went right back to being mediocre. Logic also dropped a really good album in 2024 too, that being Ultra 85. I'd say he was already having an upwards trend in quality with Vinyl Days in College Park, but Ultra 85 is easily his best project. Paul Rodriguez alone is one of the best songs of that year, and I'm really surprised at how much effort and passion he put into this project. I heard he spent a while on this project too, which makes sense considering the quality of it, and I'm glad this album made people respect Logic instead of knowing him as the white guy that says the N-word. Ken Carson also had this upwards trend in quality too. Now I wasn't really the biggest fan of Ken Carson initially, and the same could be said for most people, especially in regards to his 2022 release, X. And if we're going in terms of the general public, then A Great Chaos would be a surge in quality, as most people consider that to be his best. But I actually give that title to More Chaos. I found A Great Chaos to be mediocre as well, but More Chaos not only is more well polished, it's also more catchy, has a clearer vision, and honestly has some of his best tracks to date. It's honestly a wildly creative album at points, and I really had a lot of fun with this project. But even if you disagree, since 2023, Ken Carson has transformed from someone considered another copycat to someone with their own identity, personality, and diehard fanbase in the rage scene. Sigur Ros's Blue Fetus album, no, I am not pronouncing the actual name because I'm too afraid of butchering it, was right after the debut self-titled, which was dark, mysterious, but heavily unpolished. There are a lot of instances on here that barely even sound like real music, and their fanbase also saw it as mediocre. So going from this to one of their best and most well-known albums, that too in 1999, is truly something special. You rarely see an album transcend the boundaries of language and culture, especially if it has foreign lyrics, but this album did exactly that, and I feel that's more telling of the art than anything else. I'm so happy I finally get to say this next one, but Chance the Rapper finally had his comeback after the flop that was The Big Day with his latest project, Starline. Now, I don't think this is his best project, don't get me wrong here, but after not dropping for so long and with fans being worried, I'm so glad he's finally back and making quality music. I'm just as happy he finally has it in him to bounce back from his failures. Speaking of failures, actually, I think now is a good time to get into. I've talked about a lot of positive changes in music artists, but have there been any negative changes? Well, yeah, obviously. These are left turns in the sense that the projects were so notoriously bad that it stained their reputation as an artist. Kanye notably had quite possibly the biggest fall off in musical history, both in his reputation and the actual music itself. It wasn't even a gradual fall off either, at least for his music. The quality difference from Dawn and the Vultures 1 and 2 is genuinely astounding. It doesn't even sound like the same artist, and this time that's not a good thing. And now he has songs like World War III, Cousins, and yeah. It's one thing to become a terrible person, and usually I go with the sentiment that you should separate the art from the artist, but not only is this man putting his own messed up thoughts and opinions in his music, but now he's using AI, so like, what's even the art to separate from at this point? While no one is gonna have a musical fall-off like Kanye ever, at least I hope, there are still other instances of artists having a noticeable drop-off in quality. Chance the Rapper's first album, The Big Day, was released 3 years after his past mixtape, Coloring Book, and this album was and still is notoriously bad. Although he did fortunately drop a great project recently, like I mentioned earlier, the fact it took him so long for him to release another project after The Big Day further proves that this album will forever be a tumor in Chance's career. Eminem has also dropped a lot of stinkers in his career, but the worst drop in quality by far was the time period between 2013 and 2017. In 2013, he dropped a sequel to his most acclaimed album, The Marshall Mathers LP. While obviously not as good as the first, The Marshall Mathers LP 2 was still a very well-rounded and well-polished project according to many, and people were excited for what he had to offer next. Then he dropped Revival in 2017. I don't think I need to explain how people reacted. More recently, last year, Lil Wayne released his 6th installment in his Carter series. And I'm just gonna keep this one incredibly blunt. This album was straight garbage. With a series like the Carter series that he puts a lot of care and passion in, you think he'd cut out songs like Island Holiday, If I Play Guitar, and Penis and Elephant. Seriously, what a god's gift to earth is that? But instead, we get a project that is okay at best, and downright horrendous at worst. Some artists have had bad left turns due to them trying out a completely different genre than what is expected by them, but not having it the same quality as their other albums. Probably the biggest example of this is Kid Cudi's Speeding Bullet to Heaven. Cudi goes full grunge on this album and delves into various mental health topics frequently on this album. This album is pretty much just a vent album, which begs the question, why do people hate this album considering it's supposed to be a very personal album and is a switch up in sound? Well, not only is the grunge aesthetic not done that great, the mental health and grief lyrics on here are pretty bare bones and he doesn't really explore these themes as much as he could have. I don't think this album is a straight 0 out of 10, but this could have been way more better if Kid Cudi actually took the time to get his point across. Even some of the decent songs on here are ruined by too many Beavis and Butthead skits that make me want to kill myself. The title track and Embers are amazing though. Those tracks are definitely worth checking out at least. This is the section of the video where I talk about other big changes in artists that don't really fit any of the categories said previously, or multiple of them. Some artists were able to change both their sound and quality through the release of a single project, and one of the biggest examples of this is Lil Yachty's Let's Start Here. Yes, I'm finally talking about this album. Lil Yachty completely removes himself from the rap aesthetic and makes a full psychedelic rock album with inspirations of Pink Floyd and Jimi Hendrix, and even having tracks produced by Mac DeMarco and Magdalena Bay. Generally, no one expected him to drop something like this, but everyone loved it, including me. He's very clearly enjoying himself more on this album, and resulted in some of the best stuff he's ever made to this day. Okay, you guys have to hear me out for this next one. Lil Darky ended up completely evolving himself with his 2025 release, Yang. I know this guy has not had the best reputation, I know he's had a lot of controversies, but that's not what I want to focus on right now, because this album is some of his most mature work yet. Not only does he talk about a lot of mental health issues on this album, that too really well done, he's also completely changed his sound, just like Lil Yachty. Sure, there are some rap songs here and there, but for the most part, it's a mix of a lot of genres. Neo-soul, indie rock, and even shoegaze at some points. Well, at least according to the genre sections of his album. He should definitely make more music like this, because people would appreciate him way more if he stopped being edgy. And hearing this album honestly has me really excited for what music he's gonna drop next. Well, it was nice while it lasted, I guess. Godspeed You Black Emperor didn't actually start off with F sharp, A sharp infinity, like I originally thought. Most people don't know this, but back in 1994, they released a demo called All Lights F***ed on the Harry Am Drooling. That is one heck of a name, oh my god. That was only listenable on 33 cassette tapes. At least, that was until 2022 when it got leaked for the whole world to finally hear. And it's, the entire project feels very disjointed and sporadic, honestly, which makes it even more surprising that they went from this to one of their best records, F sharp, A sharp infinity, 5 years later. There are other left turns in music artists that I like to call the quote-unquote popularity surges. These artists were already pretty popular before, but these people had mainly one project that pretty much doubled or tripled their popularity, or at least their current notoriety. I can mention a bunch of artists that had gotten noticeably popular due to websites like Rate Your Music and Album of the Year, but I think the biggest example of this occurrence is with Charlie XCX. Now, to say that she wasn't popular beforehand would be a blatant lie, as he was a relatively well-known electronic pop artist. However, in 2024, she released her most popular project to date, Brat. And over the course of the next couple of months during the summer of 2024, the internet pretty much created this cultural Brat movement. Again, Charlie has always been a popular artist, but he's never been recognized up to this scale. It seems like everyone and their mother knew about this album, whether it was hearing it on the radio or seeing this ugly neon green color as people's profile pictures. People even started calling the summer of 2024 the Brat summer. If that doesn't cement her status in pop culture, I really don't know what does. While not as big, this year, Nina Girachi also became 10 times more popular with her electronic folklist album, I Love My Computer. I've seen people compare this to Brat somewhat, but I think these two projects are completely different and focus on completely different paths and topics. I honestly like this better than Brat actually, as it's way more well-polished, way more fun and forward-thinking, and it's way more introspective at points, which makes all the Australian awards she won all the more deserving. There's one more artist I'd like to talk about in this section, and I don't really know if you guys know him. His name is Kendrick Lamar. I think the entire global population knows what happened with Kendrick in 2024. He started the beef with Drake. He ended up winning the beef. He won like 5 Grammys in the process, and then he dropped a surprise album in the middle of November. GNX is his only album that has zero story whatsoever, as it's mainly just a club banger album. But I'm not gonna lie, it's a really good one. A lot of people seem to agree as well, because this album made so many more people be aware of Kendrick and have all eyes on him, if the beef didn't do that already. However, this just happened to spawn one very small problem. While this album did grow Kendrick's fanbase, it also just straight up fully lobotomized in the process. Yeah, I'm just gonna be blunt here. While I do think GNX is a great album, I don't know if this album was a good or a bad left turn. Because like I said, it grew Kendrick's fanbase, but as a result, it resulted in so many glazers and cornballs in the fanbase. It wasn't that bad at first. Really, it wasn't. But it's gotten so bad right now to the point that it spawned more Kendrick haters that look at you like you just killed someone when you say you're a Kendrick fan. The worst part is that this mob is so incredibly close-minded because they base their entire judgment on a specific album only. Not Damn, not Good Kid, Mad City, not To Pimp a Butterfly, no. Only GNX. Like, I get it. Every fan base has its haters and glazers. That's inevitable. And people want to fit in with the new trending opinion or whatever the hell not. But it's gotten so bad to the point that it's personally affecting my own perception of the album. It already happened with Not Like Us being so overplayed, but there are so many songs on this album that are either overplayed to the point I don't like them, or so hated to the point that I have to hide myself every time I play it. The title track is a good song. I like it. I do. I'm tired of pretending this song is bad, and I'm tired of seeing the same video with the same 20-second snippet with the caption, Kendrick fans want to hear the worst song ever. Shut up! I still like this song. I do. I really do. But for me, it's getting slowly worse and worse. And I haven't even mentioned the one-word elephant in the room. You know what I'm talking about. I know you know. Now, before I wrap this video up, there's one more thing I want to mention, and it may or may not be some of y'all's minds right now. I mean, really, why does talking about these left turns even matter? I mean, sure, it's interesting, and I said that at the start, but it's also just a completely random thing to talk about. I feel like asking yourself what the purpose of a certain video is should be something that should be done on most videos. Because if there's no purpose to a video other than just talking about a made-up topic, well, then why are you even making the video in the first place? Did I just find a certain group of artists I find interesting and decide to make a video about them just for the fun of it? Well, yes and no. Initially, I did just find it interesting. I wasn't even planning to end this video off like this, because my motivation didn't go much deeper than that. However, part of me now does think it does go deeper than that. Because truthfully, good or bad, I'd rather see an artist go out of their comfort zone to make something new and surprising than to make the same music over and over again and just not try really. What separates the good artist from the exceptional artist to me is their willingness to try. Willingness to push themselves out of their comfort zone and be the best possible version of themselves they can. I think now more than ever we've been seeing a wave of artists and just art in general being more glorified because they don't seem to try, and this whole aesthetic being more normalized. And now with people using AI, I feel like now is the time to fully express yourself more than ever. Nathan Zed has an amazing video about this exact topic actually. Go to YouTuber by the way. But what spoke to me the most about this topic in general is just the fact that some artists are willing to do everything that it takes to make their artistic statement stick with everyone. Even if it's the riskiest thing ever, the fact they were able to take the risk in the first place is already an accomplishment on its own. What I'm really trying to say is, in a time where people are praised for appearing effortless, all this sentiment really does make the unexpected even more exciting. And I think truly that's the main reason why finding change is so interesting to me. Who knows, maybe even you could be one step away from changing your own story for the better without you even realizing. And the only thing that's stopping you is your own willpower. Maybe it's time for you to step outside your own comfort zone and just see where the wind takes you for a change. Or you could just leave this video with being hopefully entertained. Your choice.